If you're considering a short sale, one of the first questions that usually comes up is this: how long is this going to take? And that question makes sense because timing affects everything. It affects when you can move, your stress level, your finances, and in some situations, whether you're able to avoid foreclosure. So understanding the timeline is not just helpful, it's critical. But here's the challenge. There isn't one simple answer because a short sale is not a fixed process with a fixed timeline. It's a process with multiple stages, and each stage can vary depending on the situation. So what I want to do is break this down in a way that gives you a realistic expectation. Not best case, not worst case, just what you should actually expect if you go down this path. Nevada Strategic Property Group is a collaborative team serving Northern Nevada, including Skip Benton, Toni Taylor, and Savannah Lee with Coldwell Banker Select Real Estate, along with Angie Salcido with Premier Credit Solutions. What we focus on is helping homeowners understand not only their options, but the process behind those options. Because when you understand the process, you can plan. Let's start with the big picture. A short sale has 4 main stages: preparation, marketing, lender approval, and closing. Each one contributes to the total timeline, and each one has variables that can either speed things up or slow things down. Let's start with preparation. This is where everything begins. Before anything is listed, before any buyer sees the home, you need to understand your position. What is your loan balance? What is the home realistically worth in today's market? Are there multiple loans, liens, or complications that need to be addressed early? This stage is often overlooked, but it matters because the more clarity you have up front, the smoother everything else becomes. In some cases, preparation can take a few days. In others, it may take a couple of weeks, especially if there are multiple moving parts. Once preparation is complete, the next stage is marketing. This is where the home is listed for sale. The home is marketed, showings are scheduled, buyers come through, and offers are submitted. The time it takes to get an offer can vary significantly depending on market conditions and pricing strategy. In a strong market, you might receive an offer quickly. In a slower market, it might take longer. Pricing plays a major role. If the home is priced correctly from the start, it tends to attract attention faster. If it's priced too high, it can sit on the market, and that adds time. So even before we get to the lender, part of the timeline is influenced by strategy. Once an offer is received, the next stage begins, and this is where the process really changes because now the lender becomes involved. The offer is submitted to the lender for approval, and this is the stage most people are referring to when they ask about timing. It's also the stage where patience is required. The lender doesn't just review the offer, they review everything. They look at the property value, compare it to market data, review the loan balance, assess the homeowner's situation, and determine whether accepting that offer makes sense from their perspective. This is not a quick review. It's detailed, structured, and often involves multiple people within the lender's organization. Now, let's talk about a realistic range. From the time an offer is submitted to the time the lender responds, it can take anywhere from 30 to 90 days. Sometimes faster, sometimes longer. Every file is different. Some are simple with one loan, clear documentation, and a strong offer. Others are more complex with multiple loans, additional liens, incomplete documentation, or negotiations between multiple parties. Every layer of complexity adds time. If there are 2 loans on the property, both lenders need to approve the transaction. That means more coordination, more negotiation, and more time. If the lender feels the offer is too low, they may counter. That creates another round of negotiation, and each round adds time. During this stage, it can feel like nothing is happening. Weeks may go by without visible progress. But behind the scenes, the file is moving. It's being reviewed, evaluated, and negotiated. That's why staying patient and organized is important. Once the lender approves the short sale, the final stage begins: closing. This part looks much more like a traditional real estate transaction. The buyer finalizes their financing, inspections are completed, documents are prepared, and the transaction moves toward closing. This stage typically takes around 30 days. So when you look at the entire process from start to finish, a typical short sale might take anywhere from 90 to 150 days, sometimes shorter, sometimes longer, but that's a reasonable expectation. Now, let's talk about what can slow things down because this is where homeowners can actually make a difference in the process. The most common delays come from missing information, incomplete documentation, unclear financials, or slow communication. If the lender requests documents and they're not provided quickly, the process pauses. If something is unclear, it needs to be clarified. If someone involved becomes unresponsive, everything slows down. Another major factor is the buyer. Short sales require patience, and not every buyer is willing to wait. If a buyer walks away during the process, you may need to find a new buyer, and that can reset the timeline entirely. Now let's talk about what helps speed things up. Preparation, clear documentation from the start, accurate pricing, strong communication, and a committed buyer. When those pieces are in place, the process tends to move more efficiently. Let's bring this back to your situation. The timeline is not just about the process itself. It's about how that process fits into your reality. If you're current on payments, you may have more flexibility. If you're behind, timing becomes more important. If foreclosure is approaching, decisions may need to happen quickly. Here's something important to understand. A short sale is not about speed, it's about resolution. It's about working through a situation in a structured way and creating an outcome that is better than the alternative. Sometimes that takes time, but that time is not wasted. It's part of reaching a better result. Think about the alternative. Foreclosure. That process also has a timeline, but it's not your timeline. It's the lender's. In a short sale, you remain involved. You continue making decisions. You continue working toward a specific outcome. That difference matters because control changes everything. So how long does a short sale take? The honest answer is longer than a traditional sale, shorter than most people fear, and manageable when you understand the process. If you want to take the first step, visit sellsmartnv.com, understand your position, understand your options, and start planning instead of guessing.